Hello everyone, Coach Fury here, welcome back. It's been a little while, but I'm back here today to talk about my Draft Day Sports Pro Basketball 17 playthrough with the LA Waves or LA Lakers. It's been, like I said, it's been a little while since we've been sort of touch base on this and just getting back into it now. So, not too sure where we finished off last time. I think we were around about just before the Christmas period. We're now sort of into the end of January, looking towards the trade deadline, but there's just one big piece of news to share with you all, really. So last time we were obviously thinking about different trades and different scenarios, and we'll talk about the progress the teams are making, which has been really positive the past month or two. But we pulled the trigger on a trade, and I thought I'd talk you through that first before we look at the actual results. So as you see, we've just gone up to January 31st, and about a week or so before that, I pulled a trade that was actually offered to me by the AI from the New York Metros, and that was to send Jordan Clarkson, who we've been talking about for a little while. He's obviously been playing really well for us, but there was just a thought around his contracts and around whether we could get something better or we need to move in a different direction, because I felt that with Clarkson at the shooting guard position for us, we were never going to win the championship. So there's two reasons why I made this. Norris Cole was just a filler. He's just an expiring contract. The first round pick was kind of why I made the move and agreed to it. New York, we'll go to the standings and just take a quick look. New York haven't been doing that well so far this season. They're 16-27, so potential option that could be a lottery pick, which would be fantastic for us to get another lottery talent in. But the main reason I did it was the cap space as well. So you can see here that we've cleared off Clarkson's contract, which I think was about $12 million, and it's freed up our cap space next year. So we're now looking at about $75 million on our payroll. You can see we're currently just over the salary cap here, which means that we're probably going to have about $20 million to spend, which is really good. You can see that obviously last season we got Nerlens Noel in for about $16 million. We really want to try and move Mozgov's contract, ideally, in the off-season or at the trade deadline. So we'll see if we can move him. We've also currently got D'Angelo Russell on the trade block as well. I think we need to go in a different direction, trying to see whether we can get something for him. If not, then we'll have a look at the trade deadline to see who's available and see what we can do there. So that's the big trade for us. In terms of how we've been doing over the past sort of couple months or so, we've obviously sort of carried on winning. I think we were in a really good position when we first started. We had a bit of a dodgy December where we had sort of a lot of back-to-back losses and sort of struggling along there. January's been okay, really. I mean, I think we started off January a bit back and forth with some wins against New Orleans and Milwaukee. Obviously, typical loss to Golden State. I don't think anyone's going to beat them at the moment, and a loss to Houston there and Washington. But the back end of January has been really positive. We've beat Chicago, Sacramento, Charlotte, Dallas, and Atlanta, all in fairly good results, which has given us a really, really good record so far. So we're now sitting at 25-19. Obviously, we're still behind Sacramento and Golden State within our division. But if you look at the conference, we're still sort of a 6 seed playoff team, but we're sort of fighting in that middle of the pack there with the likes of Sacramento, Oklahoma, and San Antonio. So the hope is that over the next sort of month or so, obviously we'll be looking at trades and things like that. But hopefully, over the period, we can continue to move forward and solid, make our playoff status solid, and hopefully get some trades going. So in terms of how people have been performing, let's just have a flick through, because I haven't seen this for a little while. So we've always commented on Russell and sort of said, well, we're going to try and look to move him on. I think, for me personally, I think he's not the type of point guard that we want. We want someone with a little bit better passing skills. And he's a bit hit and miss in games. I think we've touched on this to death over this series, but some games he'll turn up and play really well, some games he won't. Maybe it's due to his age, but we'll see if we can probably try and move him on. Hayertas hasn't played, so we won't talk about him. Livingston's been doing fairly well. I think, if I remember right, I sort of put him in and out of the starting lineup, and he's in the starting lineup at the moment as our starting point guard. Obviously his passing's still not great. The reason I put him in there was his defence and his experience, to be honest with you. I think he's been playing fairly well. We're not expecting a great deal out of him. Obviously he's a minimum salary guy. Norris Cole's the guy we've just acquired. He seemed to be doing fairly well in New York. You see by his stat line in terms of he must have been playing for them fairly regularly. Yeah, it looks like he has. But whether he plays for us, we don't know yet. Nick Young, we're not playing at all. He's just expiring for us. Harrison's been in the D-League, our second round pick last year. His stat line's been fairly good. I think the disappointing thing with him, I think his shooting needs a bit of work. I don't think he'd be a great shooter in the league, so maybe it's something we'll have to have a look at. His defence is fairly solid though, so possibly a rotation piece next year or the year after once he's played some solid D-League minutes. Manu Ginobili's probably been a bit of a disappointment. I know he's 39 years old, but I was expecting him to just give a little bit more experience. So his playing time's kind of gone down a bit. He's playing a little bit less now for us. So we'll leave him as is. Ingram's been consistent as always. I think he's pretty much at his peak now. We've obviously been playing him some quite heavy minutes. Like we've commented before, he's not going to be a star for us. He's going to be this glue guy. You can see he does a little bit of everything. So he'll be handy later on. He may be a trade piece if we can get a star with him, but we'll see how that goes. Talking about Kirkland, so our first round pick last year, we picked him for his defence really. He's been coming off the bench for us. His shooting's been a little bit iffy, but we'll see how he does. Nance Jr.'s been doing fairly well off the bench for us. I'm fairly happy with that. Some good production for someone who we're paying hardly anything to. Zubac has been in the D-League. He's putting up some good stats there. I think due to his height more than anything. You can see his defence is good, but his rebounding's a bit iffy. So not sure whether he has a future with us. Obviously he's contracted to next year as well. We'll see how he goes. Black hasn't played at all for us. Mozgov we've commented on in terms of we want to move that contract really. His playing time's gone down and down due to the likes of Gobert coming in and Noel playing the two positions there. So I think we're in good shape. I think we've got quite a tough schedule in February. In terms of we're playing a lot of games away on the road. You can see we're starting February off all on the road really. So what I'm probably going to do is I'm probably going to sim this through to the sort of trade deadline, see if I can make any moves, and then next episode we'll sort of come back and talk on that really. So that's kind of where we are in terms of how the picture looks for the rest of the league. We'll start with the Eastern Conference. So we'll put this in playoff mode just so you can see. So we talked about I think last time that Philadelphia, I've mentioned I was really expecting them to sort of make jump forward this year and be the dominating Eastern Conference team really. So far it doesn't look like that's happened. I think it looks like, I mean, if you look at their team, they've got Lowry and Jack playing at the back positions. So perhaps they're probably struggling with a bit of backcourt presence. I mean, in terms of going at the front court, they've got so much depth there. They need to try and move that really. Interestingly, Saric is not starting for them, which is surprising because I would have expected him to start at probably small forward rather than at a power forward position. He'd be an oversized small forward, but that's where I see his career going because of his passing and handling skills. They're fairly solid. In terms of the front court, they're going with the height of Okafor and Embiid. So obviously Embiid is just absolutely insane, but interestingly that they haven't really adjusted the lineup a little bit. I mean, Jack is not really probably a starting small shooting guard anymore. They're obviously paying him a lot of money, it looks like. They signed him in the off season. I'd be surprised if this team doesn't stay as is. I'd expect them to try and move someone like Embiid, Okafor, who I think's coming off. Yeah, he's got 2 more deals, so he's still got some trade value left. So I'd be surprised if they don't try and move someone like Okafor or Saric. I think Simmons has been injured, that's why he's not been. Oh no, he's been in there at power forward. Okafor's been playing off the bench, sorry. So Simmons and Embiid should be putting this team forward, but it doesn't look like that's kind of happening at the moment. So when you look at the actual conference for the East, Milwaukee, who we commented on last year, Giannis got injured for most of the season. They had the first pick of the draft, who they picked up, I believe it was this Kevin Murray, who's had a fairly solid start. His defense for me, I would never pick him because his defense is terrible, but he's been fairly good in terms of how they're looking. So obviously Giannis is playing at the point forward position, and then they've kind of got just a mixture of everything else, but basically this is Giannis is absolutely insane on this game. Look at his stat line, that's just absolutely amazing really. So I expect Milwaukee, if they can surround him with half decent players, then they'll be up there. I guess the surprising one, which I guess people will sort of see when I'm flicking through this, is that Cleveland are sort of struggling this year with LeBron James. So obviously LeBron's got a player option next year. They're not playing very well, so there's an option that he may be looking to move on. I guess the thing to sort of highlight is that this team hasn't changed much in the past year or so. That starting lineup is still the same, so I guess it's a case of they've regressed quite heavily and not really performing that well. So obviously Kevin Love's defence has fallen off a cliff, which is interesting. Irving has still been putting up some good stat lines, so it's just a case of them probably just not progressing as much as other teams around them. So if we look at the Western Conference now, so you'll kind of see that obviously Golden State are miles ahead of everyone else. That record is just incredible. But then you look at the others, so we've got Minnesota there, who have been playing fairly well recently in terms of position. So I think the main thing has been because Karl Anthony Towns has been playing some absolutely amazing basketball really. You look at that stat line, 32 points, 2.6 assists, 13 rebounds, a steal and 2 blocks a game at least, which is incredible. So he is actually looking better than Embiid at the moment, which is really interesting. So they've obviously managed to surround him with some fairly decent players. Obviously Wiggins is playing fairly solid for them. He's coming off his rookie contract, so he'll obviously be expecting a big payday this off season. They've also still got the likes of Rubio about. He's still got a bit of contract left. He's been playing fairly well. If you look at Chris Dunn, he's also been playing really well for them. So they've managed to surround them with some fairly good players. So I think that's one of the reasons why they're doing so well. If you then look at the rest of the conference, obviously we've commented on here that looking at the other teams, Denver is sort of solid, Sacramento is solid. I think Cousins has been playing fairly well. Oklahoma is just Westbrook and everyone else. San Antonio is sort of hanging on in there. They're an interesting one. They've kind of got some really good personnel. They're obviously aging quite a bit. So they've still got the likes of Paul Gasol playing solid minutes and playing really well. He's obviously 36 now, so he's obviously falling off. Kawhi Leonard has obviously been playing really well. I see him in a similar sort of form that I see the likes of Ingram for us, in that he's probably never going to be the go-to guy on any team. I think because his ratings are so well balanced, it means that he'll be sort of always a 2 or 3 option for a team. If you look at San Antonio in the backcourt, they've still got the likes of Parker and Williams. Williams has got quite a long contract for them, so it'll be interesting to see if he stays developed. Nick Stalkus as well, they've picked up. So they've kind of got an Asian team, but they're still hanging around in there in the playoffs. So they're still a threat really. Just coming back to us really, I think we've got the likes of, if we can get above San Antonio, that would be great, because that means that we'll probably avoid Minnesota and Golden State. We'll have to play Denver. I know it's probably a little bit too early to be talking about things like this, but why not? I think we match up better against Denver. I think their main player is Jokic, who's been absolutely insane for them. So I think if we match up well, because obviously Jokic and Gobert, I think Gobert would kind of nullify Jokic a bit, and I think we've got a bit of a better depth than they might necessarily have. I think Moutier has been playing well, but I think we can nullify him. So I think that's where we stand the best chance, really. So what I might do actually, guys, is I might sim through a couple of days, a couple of weeks or so. When's the trade deadline? I can never remember that date. The trade deadline is 22nd. So let's sim up to the 22nd. Let's see how we get on. Let's just check. We've got no real major injuries. We're happy with the chart. Yeah, let's just sim through to the 21st and just see how we get on. Have we got any important games that we perhaps want to have a look at? Kind of all on the road, aren't they? I think we'll sim a week, see how we get on, and then we'll see if there's any key matchups that we want to have a go against and go from there. So we'll sim to that date. Let's just see how we get on. So we're 25 and 19 at the moment. I'm hoping that we can at least stay in the playoff hunt, make some moves. I think we're in a good position so far. If we can get some cap room this off season, that'd be really good. We'll see how the AllStar game goes. Actually, we might just go up to that and see how that goes. So we haven't played any games yet. There we go. We've won our first one. Can't remember who that was against, but it was obviously on the road, which is really good. Won the second one, which is brilliant. So that's good. Keeps our record healthy. If we can keep that up, that'd be really good. Oh, looks like we've lost one there. Dropped one on the road. Still 2 and 1 on the road. Seems positive. Oh, drops another one there. So we're 2 and 2 on the road, which is fine. I think if we can go 0.50 on the road, still keep that lead, that would be really good. Oh, it looks like we've dropped 3 and 2 there. So Philadelphia, as you'd kind of expect. So looks like we've won our opening 2 games against Minnesota, which is really interesting. Saying I wanted to avoid Minnesota, and we beat them on the road. Beat Memphis, and we've lost to Boston, Brooklyn, Philly. So I'd have expected a loss to Boston and Philly. Brooklyn one's probably the most disappointing one. So hopefully we can sort of keep this record up. Looks like we've got no major injuries or anything happening, which is good. When is the All-Star set of games? Let's just see if we can flick through. See if we could just find those quickly. There we go. So we'll sim up to the rookie game, and we'll see if we have any rookies representative. I don't expect Kirkland to be in there, but let's just see how we get on. Just my main aim is to stay at 0.500, because if we stay at 0.500, that keeps us in the playoff hunt, I think. Especially against this tough road fixture that we've got going on now. So we're currently 2 and 3. Let's see if we can keep that 0.500 record going towards the All-Star break, really. No, it looks like I've dropped to 2 and 4 now, which is a bit disappointing. But still above 0.500. That's the main thing at the moment. So yeah, so we've got another one there. So we're 3 and 4, which is good. I think we may have got another one there, which means we're 4 and 4, which is brilliant. So how do we get on? So we obviously went on a bit of a losing streak there, obviously. So we lost to Philadelphia again. We had the Philadelphia game last time. So we lost to Chicago. Okay, but we've beat Utah and Portland, which is probably more important for us, because obviously the likes of Utah and Portland are in our playoff, in our sort of conference, and in the playoff hunt, really. So to beat them to below us is really good. We've sort of stayed in the 6th place at the moment, and we're sort of matching San Antonio really at the moment. So that's really good. That's really positive. We haven't had any emails, which is no trade offers yet. So let's go ahead and let's have a look at the All-Star period and see how everything gets on there. So, the All-Star Game. So, Sam Dunk champion was Andre Robertson, interestingly. Oklahoma City there. 3-point shootout winner was Kawhi Leonard, so that was surprising. I didn't expect him to win that, especially with the likes of Kevin Murray, who was the first round pick from Milwaukee, was a 3-point shooter predominantly, and JJ Redick in there. So, interesting. Let's go ahead to the actual rookie and sophomore game. See how that opened. So it looks like the sophomores have won it again in a high scoring fashion. Let's just have a little look at the box. We'll see who turned up. So in terms of the rookies, the first round pick Kevin Murray didn't make the starting lineup. Blimey. Looks like for them, the likes of Kenneth Lyons, who was the guy who I really wanted to get in that draft. Unfortunately, I think he went like 4th or 5th overall, so we kind of didn't get him. He dropped. We were 11th, so we were nowhere near getting in. But I was hoping he would drop. Anthony Paul looks like he's done fairly well. I'm not sure where he's at. Looking at the sophomores, so great to see that Ingram was on there. So he's obviously had a good season for us. He played fairly well. Shot 12 of 13. Done a little bit of everything really. Only 2 rebounds, but 27 points is good. Simmons obviously played well, but it was Chris Dunn, interestingly, was the star performer according to this. 34 points, 9 assists, 2 rebounds and a steal. Yeah, it's fairly good. But really good to see Ingram on there. So let's go ahead to the All-Star Game. Let's see how that happens. I'd expect the West to win this, to be honest with you. And yeah, they have done. So let's take a quick look. So in terms of the West, looking at that, so obviously Harden had a really good game. 26 points, 11 assists, rebound and 3 steals, which is really good. Interesting to see that Anthony Davis has been knocked off of his sort of starting position by Towns now and Blake Griffin. So Blake Griffin didn't play 10 minutes and didn't shoot an entire thing. That's a really interesting stat. Did he foul at all? So he fouled once. That's interesting. He only lasted 10 minutes. Maybe he got injured. That's the only thing I could think of there. In terms of other guys, obviously Steph Curry sort of coming from the bench. Durant played fairly well. Looks like they kind of shared the ball quite a lot, apart from Jokic, who shot 18 times, and Westbrook, who shot 15. But looks like they kind of shared the ball quite a lot. Looking at the Eastern Conference, obviously James was the standout there, as well as Giannis. Giannis, look at that. That's incredible. 10 assists, 0 turnovers, 7 of 11 from field goal range, and 19 points. And 7 rebounds. That guy, he's going to be the star of this league. I can see it already. I can see how well he's doing with Milwaukee, with that team that's not really got much talent outside of him, and he's leading them in the Eastern Conference. So perhaps they're an outside shot of winning it all. If Giannis carries on like that, we could be looking at Milwaukee Golden State final, which would be kind of interesting. So that's the All-Star break. Let's jump through. Let's go to the 21st, and we'll probably stop there for this episode. I'll have a little look around, see whether we can get anything done, any deals. I really want to try and move Moskov. I may try and see if we can do that. See if we can get anything for D'Angelo Russell, and just see what happens. See if we get any offers sent our way. Really, we'll see what happens. So we've won another game there, so we're going to finish on 13-23 just before the trade deadline, which is really good. I'm really happy with that. That's really positive, which hopefully keeps us in a solid playoff hunt. Yeah, we've beat Orlando there, which is really good. We've got a couple of emails, we've got a couple of trade rumours, so we'll admit that we're looking to shop Russell. And Moskov, okay, we can't respond to that one because it's gone past the date, but we'll admit that. We'll see what we can get going. I'll probably end the episode there, guys. A little bit shorter than normal. Hopefully we'll see if we can get some trades going. We'll see what we can do. I'll probably try and sim ahead a couple months or so just to see if we can stay in that playoff hunt, and we'll sort of recap the next episode. Obviously, if we have a huge trade that I managed to pull off, we'll probably won't sim any games. We'll just comment on that, and then we'll sim from there, because I want you guys to see how that goes. But as always, if you enjoyed the episode, hit that like button, and always, hit the subscribe button as well if you want to follow the episodes as they come out.